Up session. We'd like to welcome everybody out with us this evening. The way this will kind of go is we're going to, we've asked Jared Lewis and Jeff Seedall if they would give us a report on the findings and recommendations of the Main Street Steering Committee. We'll have them do that kind of here at the beginning. There'll be time for questions and answers with the council that they will have, and you'll be able to answer, questions and that kind of thing. After that, we have a closed session that we need to go into, so we'll excuse the audience. The council will go into a closed session for 15 minutes or 20 minutes or so, and then we'll reconvene. If there's any time, we'll go over the agenda for the evening, and then go into our policy session. So that's kind of the plan for the workshop. With that, without any further ado, Jared, why don't we turn the time over to you, and you can present your findings.
Okay. All right. Well, gentlemen, it's like deja vu. Feels like I was here, 2 weeks ago or something. Today we're gonna talk about the taboo subject. We're gonna talk about the elephant in the room that has been the subject of some back and forth, some controversy. We hope to avoid that tonight, and we hope to show you that the research that we've done has tried to see all sides of all arguments and present a case to you from the Main Street Steering Committee. All of us, all those on the Main Street Steering Committee here, would you raise your hands? Okay. All right. So that Midland Square, we should design a functional, meaningful, and useful space for all of Tremont, and we can do better than what's currently there. So. Okay.
I'm behind. I thought, is this part of the Main Street thing?
Yeah.
Midland Square?
So last time we talked about the streetscape. So we intentionally left out Midland Square. But this time we are taking it on as its own subject. So again, we don't make any decisions at all. That's you guys.
I'm just
Yeah.
confused. So.
Yeah, we were asked to look at Midland Square and present to you guys our opinions and our findings. Again, obviously that decision remains with you guys, and we're just here to be your sort of research arm. So our vision is to from the beginning of our committee has been we envision an inviting, vibrant, and functional Main Street by recommending beautification, betterment, and amenities that will embolden active citizenship, invite and grow strong, healthy business enterprises, and preserve our strong heritage. So nothing controversial there. Why a public square? Why would we worry about this? With that being said, there's been extensive research I found out, and we have found out as we've collaborated as a group, on public squares, urban squares, as a method for increasing economic development. Terracast Development said well-designed public squares have been proven to attract more business for local shops, boost community morale, and enhance public safety. And Roger Brooks, who has come to be a recognized authority on Main Street development, says the investment in a public programmed plaza is one of the best ways to attract private development to a downtown. Something important to note here is we are focusing on the infrastructure part. That second part in that sentence says a programmed plaza. Programmed means that it has things going on there regularly. So you not only have the space, but you use it. Our focus has been on suggesting ways to make Midland Square more functional and easier to program events and things of the type there. Another study said public squares are one of the significant public spaces in an urban environment. Urban squares are open public spaces which reflect the city's identity and community's cultural background. They are where people of the community gather and urban life takes place since ancient times. It's been proven since ancient Greece that if we want to go back that far, that a public urban square increases, that's public urban squares are where democracy were born. And so we as humans like to meet together in a place that's beautiful and usable. What makes an effective public square? I told you guys about Roger Brooks. The Destination Development Association came out with 13 ingredients for a perfect plaza. Among those, 4 of those are the location. Your plaza should be in the heart of your downtown. Everything will emanate around it for several blocks. So that's something that Midland Square has got going for it. It's in a good location. Turn your downtown parks into plaza. Convert them into activity spaces, not just pretty places. So again, what we need to consider is Midland Square a pretty place, or is it a usable space? And they suggested rather to add music and lighting, creates an ambiance. Functional LED lighting can change color depending on time of day or events. So all part of creating that usable space. And public restrooms, there was a whole section of that study done on public restrooms, something that Tremont currently does not have in that sector of downtown. So these are kind of some of the top things that we could that are either right about Midland Square but could improve. What's wrong with Midland right now? This has been a question. A lot of people say, why do we need to do anything with it? Well, uneven levels make it unusable for a lot of things. For example, the governor came to announce that State Road 102 would be renamed the Borgstrom Brothers Memorial Highway. It was, one of the coolest things I've been a part of here, but I was standing by Jeff, and we were standing out in the street facing into the park, and Jeff leans over to me and says, if only we had a park that we could do this in. So there are chairs and everything out in the street right by our public park, and we're standing outside facing into the public park. Now, some of that was to be in better view of the memorial and everything like that, but that is something that can improve about Midland. As I understand, there was plans tentatively to put a better focal point, better gathering place in Midland Square, but for budgetary reasons that was omitted. So gathering space, there are no public restrooms there. It's not designed particularly with public use in mind. There are few amenities there. There's no real space, for example, to invite mobile food vendors to come and service that park, things like that. Just kind of make it not as usable as we could have it there. What's the solution then? Oh man, we went over this. Our preferred concept, we'll go ahead and go out and go into that PDF that I attached. We came up with a preferred concept. Sam Taylor and Jeff and have worked together to create a concept that we'd like to bring to you for your consideration. Okay. I swear we did look at, we looked at this before to make sure it was ready to go, so excuse the hiccup here.
Oh,
Start slideshow.
There should be a separate PDF that shows all 9 slides for that. I will leave that up to Jeff here, but Jeff is going to talk to us about the design aspects of this concept, and then I'll be right back after that.
yeah. So we've ironed out some of the planting details in this concept, but the main focal point was trying to create a symmetrical and mainly like Jared said, a plaza space there with the open lawn to allow for community gathering and some greenery on Main Street. On the east side, we've opened up for some seating. I think when we counted it, there was 50 to 60 seats there around tables with the shade sails and the other trees. And we believe this would allow for food trucks and vendors to come in and be able to bring some food and commerce into Midland Square for smaller or events. On the west side, we've expanded the memorial to, that memorial we protected. We added the flag for the new Space Force branch and are going to redo the concrete through there because it's a little aged and battered. And then we've added this memorial in this northwest corner. It's hard when you look at a view from this north to the south. It's just a weird thing from my background, but oh well. The northwest of having a memorial there for emergency services, fire and police was my understanding. So we believe this design opens up the park to creating a better sense of community with the space available. It is generally a small square footage, but I believe it's the first domino to fall as we try to put this effort into revitalizing our Main Street, is creating a community-oriented open space. Through the discussions we've had with the Main Street Steering Committee, I was brought to, we were looking up all this research on the value of plazas, and in my research, I found an article that dated back, and it was in 2016, is the Gateway Mall in Salt Lake was being sold. The Gateway was huge when it opened, and it kind of fought some struggles for 2 reasons. City Creek was one of them. The other was just some of the financial decisions that the ownership group over that had made. And so I found it interesting that a mall that had kind of been run down and it started to lose its luster in the community sold for a price tag of $30 million. The reason it did is that there's value in the plaza space and the pedestrian attributes that square that whole strip has. It's only 2 blocks in a crowded downtown Salt Lake, but it is, in those 6 years, been revitalized. They've put in a large hotel now that does a half moon around the Union Pacific station. A lot of those, what used to be commercial, has been converted into office or business spaces. There's a lot more eateries in to help support the growth that the Delta Center is seeing with the hockey club and the Jazz. And I just can't imagine being in meetings in 2014 and 2015 with an investment group that was willing to spend 8 figures to get a rundown mall. And as I've been looking and thinking about Midland on a personal level, I think it's our very first step as a city to show that investing in our Main Street is worth the effort and worth the long-term effect it will have on the city.
I'm sure that you guys are aware that I I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, but it's been more than a year and a half ago that we were able to get the Economic Opportunities Grant.
It was the kind of the first of 2023.
January 20. Okay, so you guys are aware of that, possibly part of that. When that happened, that money is $405,000 that we can put towards this development. Now, it's not, that's not enough to get it done, but we believe, again, like I told you last time, that the funding mechanisms are there to be able to push this project along. So that the design phase of this and getting the exact numbers that we need is a function of you guys deciding to go ahead and allow Jeff to start doing that. Unlike Main Street, this sits squarely on city property, and so we don't have to wait for UDOT to tell us okay. This is something we could get going fairly quickly, as in next construction year, if we were able to go ahead and do that. Showing the community that we're moving forward with investing would be, like Jeff said, the feelings of the Main Street Steering Committee are that it would be a domino that would fall. So let's kind of move on here, if we could. Do you guys have any questions so far?
We'll do it after.
Okay, all right. The elephant in the room. The controversy, to my understanding, around Midland Square has been the memorial space, where we honor not only the Borgstrom brothers, but many of our brave servicemen that deserve that recognition. How to balance a public plaza with a sacred space is something that is difficult to juggle, but the memorial stays. Additional plaques are put up to tell the story of other veterans, and I don't know why it says point. And I think it's supposed to say valiant citizens.
Like points.
Okay, you know what? And point out to citizens and visitors oh, you know what? No, it's right. And point citizens and visitors to other places around town to visit and learn more. So the idea here, and this is actually presented by Jed Abbott, who is our one of our veteran members of the committee, that we could put, if we went back to the concept, if you look here around the outskirts where those trees are, if we could put plaques to commemorate other veterans that would have QR codes and things like that on them, that could set a precedent for putting similar memorials, smaller memorials, as sort of satellites around town. Think Jeannie Stevens Park, think Schumann Park, and others that would all point back to this main memorial, making it the centerpiece of downtown like it should be. So centerpiece of activity, centerpiece of the memorial, of memorials in general. Like I said, this would make the memorial the centerpiece of a larger effort to remember the stories of many, many valiant servicemen and women from our community. In this way, we've started to work with our veterans to sort of make this compromise between a plaza space and a memorial space. So let's move forward. Midland could be more than just a park. Midland could be the centerpiece of a cultural and economic revival in Tremonton, place of deep significance, but also great purpose. So it needs utility and deep meaning. Does that make sense? Again, gentlemen, this is a concept. But we believe that it would be advantageous to move forward as quickly as we can agree on what it needs. So we'll go ahead and take some questions at this point. I'll do my best to answer you.
Has the numbers been put together for the park? Do we know how much it's gonna cost to do?
We're getting
this
them tomorrow.
particular- Excuse me?
We're getting them tomorrow. Chris and Sam have both put together cost estimates, and we'll have them ready for our meeting tomorrow, late morning.
There you go.
So you're getting a engineer's estimate is what we're
Yeah,
getting tomorrow.
engineers and architecturals. And from there, we were going to evaluate their costs with what funding the city has and do some value engineering over materials, finishes, and amenities in the current design.
Don't you think we ought to know what the numbers are before we vote for an approval on it?
So what we're looking at tonight is not to approve the budget necessarily. Obviously, you can't approve a budget for something that we
Right.
don't know what the budget is going to require. What we're looking for is an approval to move forward with this design concept as our preferred concept, similar to the way that we brought the road to you a couple of weeks ago. And you guys looked at that and gave us a thumbs up and an approval on that, knowing that things change and budgets are tentative. Even the engineered's budget is really just a little bit of a swag. Try to figure out how to get the best bang for our buck. And that's where we look at options and we look at value engineering like Jeff talks about and ways to make it fit within the budget that we as staff have already kind of figured that we have. I know the mayor's run some numbers on some things and there are funds available both through grants that we've received as well as potentially looking at some debt issuance for these improvements as well as the roadway, depending on how that looks. And so there are options that are available. But again, what we're looking for tonight is not necessarily the chapter and verse of the thing, but from a 30,000-foot view, are you okay moving forward with us even continuing this conversation?
Okay.
Let me ask a question. We really need to differentiate between what's going on here. Main Street Committee, you guys presented to us 2 weeks ago. And I walked out of there with a different flavor than what I'm getting tonight. Okay? You recommended we work on the streets and some different things there. Midland wasn't really even brought up. So my question to the, not this committee, but to the Main Street Committee is, what are your priorities? What's number one? What's number two? What's number three?
That's a great question. I think, like Lyle said, that priorities would have to come with cost, right, in order to get a full picture. What we want to know is in concept, in feeling, in theory, and based off of the research that we've been asked to do, do you guys agree that this could potentially be, is this worth pursuing? Is this concept worth going forward? And the time and expenditure that to get real numbers. And then once we get those together and get a little further on in the process, we can surely determine what priority. However, Midland Square should be a priority. Based off of the research, a public plaza can seriously affect the effectiveness of the rest of what we're trying to do. And the literature is clear on that. So we believe that it should hold a high priority.
So as I was looking through that data from the guys' surveys, public surveys, I got the feeling from that, it wasn't really pointed out very clear that our streets and our facades were high priority. Okay, and I felt like, according to that data, Midland was down about fourth or fifth on that list. Okay, that's 2 weeks ago kind of how I ended the evening feeling.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm asking is, are you trying to bump this Midland Square up to number one?
No.
And that's my question, you
No.
know, and in my opinion, we need to spend our money, our time, and our efforts on our number one priority.
The number one priority for me from that survey was getting food downtown. And most of our recent new restaurants, excluding the Sweet Score, are all on wheels. And so by putting seating and accessing the alleyways, and we're trying to quickly get food downtown as best as we can. We've got more food trucks in this town than we have restaurants, I'd almost argue. And I think what it does is it allows people to bring those food trucks in a consistent environment because there's already seating out available. There's also seating for people to bring food downtown if they wish. Or if the city's cooking hot dogs, there's actual seats to go sit at instead of out on a, wet lawn.
So it's really not a question of, one or the other. It maybe is a question of priority. But really, priority doesn't take place until we have more accurate information. So far, the information has told us that if we want economic development downtown, we need a central place that is both beautiful and functional to help with that. We do believe that it could take a high priority. And I don't think that the streetscape and Midland Square should be seen as two different planets here. I think it should be seen as a continuous effort, just like our main, this stretch from, the Malad River to the railroad tracks is not all of Main Street, right? Our vision is all of Main Street, right? So I wouldn't exclude Midland Square just because we're talking about the streetscape. It's like someone asking you, do you want your hand or your foot?
So
I'd like both.
I've been doing planning and this kind of thing for almost 20 years now. And when I tell people I'm a planner, they have no idea what that means. But second, then they say, well, that's great. When are you bringing in a Walmart? When are you bringing in a Trader Joe's? When are you bringing in, insert your project of choice here? As a city, we don't do that. We're not the Central Soviet. We don't build new housing, and what we try to do is set up an environment that's conducive to bring businesses in and help them thrive and succeed. So what we do is we act within the sphere that we have influence over. In this case, it's the public areas, and the roadway is a huge priority, and Midland Square is obviously in need of some attention. It's not an either or in my mind, it's a both and. And the priorities are being met through acting within the sphere that we can act. We can't force a Walmart to come to Tremont. Well, maybe we could. We'll talk more about that some other time. But what we can do is take some grant money, maybe get some funding from the city, put it into an investment that looks like, oh, these guys are serious about their downtown. They like what's going on. They're bullish on Tremont. I want to be a part of this, and I want to see this place grow, and I want to get on the ground floor and make my business go too. So it's not an either or in my mind.
There is literature to suggest, as well as I've read, and as well as the committee has read as well. We spent a lot of time reading, peer-reviewed studies on civic development. Never thought I'd spend my evenings doing that, but here we are. But there's a lot to be said for once a development of significance starts to happen, that the rising tide lifts all ships. And that, as cliche as it is to say, but that bug will bite a lot of entrepreneurs. So I have consulted with, Jonathan Grover owns is a business owner in front of Midland Square. Clay Summers is a soon-to-be business owner on the side of Midland Square. Jonathan's a part of this committee, and I've spoken with Clay about his thoughts there, and he gave us some feedback. All agree that this is at least a good concept. But yeah, the literature does show that once we start doing something that talking to people about facade grants and pitching in, right? Because the city's not going to pay for all of that, but pitching in to upgrading your facade is going to be much more likely to be received well if there's already sort of a spirit of innovation and of revival going on there, right? They don't want to be the ugly duckling on the block, right? So I've experienced that as an entrepreneur. So great questions.
So another question?
Next.
As part of your Main Street committee, what has your temperature been on Schuman Park? Because Schuman Park fits into almost all of these categories as a park close to downtown that can be converted for people to come and do things. We used to do a lot of events there, and then we moved them out there to Jeannie Stevens, which I feel was a mistake because we pulled it out of downtown. Okay, but we used to do a lot of stuff in Schuman, and it was good. And so I'm wondering why we're not taking more advantage of Schuman Park and the Midland Square, trying to bolster both of those areas.
So proximity to businesses on Main Street is a big thing, right? So Schuman Park being, and by the way, the literature also shows Roger Brooks suggests that a plaza, a central gathering place for most things, should either be paved or have a solid groundwork, right? So it shouldn't be grass. So if we talk about doing a lot of different kinds of events, we should have something that is close to businesses and can be largely sort of landscaped with stone or with pavers or something like that. So that's what I would say about that. The scope, maybe the reason that we haven't considered Schuman Park is because the scope of our committee is Main Street. So between First North and First South, right? So that's just outside of Schuman Park. Does that make sense? So, and again, it should be in the heart of downtown, I think, and this is just a thought, Schuman Park would be much more expensive to give the flavor that we're trying to talk about here, just based on, so Roger Brooks does give examples and budgets for different developments. So Schuman Park, I'm guessing, just a shot in the dark, 2 acres, maybe?
There's about 4 or 5 acres, I think.
Really?
There's about 4 acres there.
So, we're talking into, if Midland Square is gonna cost us $900,000 or something like that, Schuman Park to do what we're talking about would cost into the $3 and $4 millions of dollars. So,
You're just coming up with numbers.
no, you can look, on, yeah, Roger, that is true. Restrooms are already there. Right, but yeah, again, according to Roger Brooks, the article that I mentioned, he does list, specific developments with each of those 13 essential pieces of a plaza with the development cost as well. You can look at those, and nothing of that acreage was under, $2, $3, $4 million that I saw.
And Joe, just let me say, don't feel like you're on the firing line here. I'm sorry if you're feeling that way. We appreciate so much what you guys have done.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and the appreciation's there.
Okay.
Feel that and know that, okay? We're not here to give you the third degree and all that. We just have questions and we're accountable for the money that we spend for the citizens. And so we need to ask these questions and all that. So thank you for all what your committee has done. And please don't,
I have another question too, if
Yeah.
that's okay.
Sure.
And Bill, probably, yourself, as we look at other cities that have done kind of downtown projects, right? Do they start with the park? Because I'm just trying to understand the sequence of, is it facade first, then a central? If I look at Logan, they kind of followed that model where they went and did all the facades, and then they put in the ice skating rink and the lob center kind of at the very end. And I don't know if it's, chicken or the egg, but it almost seems to me sequentially that a facade grant program, if we're looking at Main Street revitalization, might come first as we really get a good consistent brand from this end to that end using facade grant, and then at the end put in and if Midland Square wasn't already as nice as it is, I might not have that opinion. We actually have a pretty nice Midland Square today. And so I just, I don't know if it's chicken or the egg, and I don't have the data to back that. It's kind of looking at you. Do you know, is there a pattern that,
So
Is
I'm not
common?
aware of a specific pattern that I've seen. Anecdotally, I've seen it go both ways, where they've done a park and then that encourages and spawns everyone else to say, oh, I need to clean up my building, and maybe it encourages investment to go in and buy the buildings up and
yeah,
revamp those places. But I have seen it like you're talking about in Logan, in 25th Street in Ogden, I know is a big one too. But those grants that were given were not through the city. They were given through either a historical foundation. On 25th Street, they set up a nonprofit to organize and clean up those areas. And
would the economics
little
of
bit
the 405,000 work if we were to ask for a redirect of the state while we do that and then move to the plaza later? Because I think we all would agree that we want both. Yeah. Right? I think the question at hand is, what's the sequence that we're going to follow to get to both?
Barry, do you know on that?
So what I do know is that, the state has granted us more time with the grant to go through basically the steering committee and have a citizen group come up with some plans and that kind of thing. So they've been willing to work with us along those lines. We've got to be able to sort of talk to them and see what their thinking is. I know that they're the purpose of that grant in the rural communities opportunity grant from the very beginning was economic development.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the idea of just putting a pretty face on painting and making things look better just for the sake of making things look better. There was an economic reason for it, and based on the research and everything that Jared shared with us, that's sort of the underpinning part of that grant, is that it's going to
For economic development?
yeah, it's going to spur economic development. And so, and to answer your question, I think we need to find out.
'Cause it seems like
just-
that would spur economic development as well, some facade grants, wouldn't it?
From the grant itself? No, it was all toward,
I understand that, but a redirect as well.
oh, well, that's the part of the economic development that we need to come with. If we wanted to come up with a alternate plan, then what we need to do is sort of get approved through them. I think they're open to the idea, But I think that we need to, we just need to find out for sure what they're willing to do. I just don't, the thing that worries me is if we don't want to, stumble and lose the grant, because I think that'll put
Yeah.
that'll be a black eye, and what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to show that we can perform on this and then go to them again and say, okay, now here's phase 2 or phase 3 or whatever it is. This is what maybe it's the facade grants, that we say, well, this will increase our economic vitality here in the city. And so what we don't want to do, the last thing we want to do is to stumble and to lose the opportunity. So I think we just need to make sure that,
Now, that
Move
grant
forward.
matures on January of '25.
it's coming right up.
Yeah, and so we need to redirect or ask for extended time ASAP. So FYI.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying is we've got to be very careful here. We just don't want
We
to,
close to that? Just kidding.
we don't want to lose this opportunity.
Right.
Lyle, sorry, am I allowed to speak?
Y-
I don't know if it's public.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, no, I was just gonna say, I serve on that grant board, and we're meeting for this year's grants next Tuesday, the board is. So not the staff, not James, but the actual board that makes those decisions. We're meeting for this year's thing next Tuesday. I
Next
know
Tuesday.
that. So if you guys wanted to redirect, I know I just got the invitation for the meeting today, so.
Hurry up.
That's good to know.
Northern Utah.
Thank you. That's very,
I was like, just so you know.
that's the kind of information we need to
Yeah,
have.
I was like, I've been on that board, so
Okay.
yeah, they are meeting on the 10th, and so you would wanna get with James Dixon
Yeah,
and get your redirect and stuff.
okay, very good. That's good to know. Thank you.
Since we got Monica sitting here and you sit on the committee, it's perfect. I mean, so,
I
yeah,
don't wanna
the,
speak for the whole board.
I understand you can't speak for the whole board, and like Lyle says, we don't want to stumble and lose the grant. That's 400 grand is what it is, but, we're talking about here improving the looks of Midland Square and versus, we've already had the guidance committee give us a great ideas on what we should do with Main Street. If we just take that and use that as the directive for the 400,000.
Like Lyle said, it has to be tied to economic development, but other
I guess
cities
I'm-
and communities do use it for infrastructure.
What has to happen is you got to demonstrate that through research or whatever, we've got to be able to demonstrate that this funding would be able to, will spur economic development.
So you could make a good
We've got to be able to,
Yeah, you
we've
can
got
make
to
a really
show
good
that.
case for the streetscape. I know other communities have.
That was the whole drive of why we're doing Main
Yeah,
Street, is
especially
to
what you
spur
guys did with
economic
that.
development.
Yeah.
There's no other
Yeah, the biggest
reason.
thing is when the grant was originally awarded, it was for Midland.
Well, we just need to demonstrate that. We need to demonstrate that in the,
And I would
I have a
demonstrate.
question for the rest of the steering committee. I mean, where do you prioritize? And Jared's got, unless you've already had that question, but what does everybody think? Because Midland Square is unlike what we seen a year ago when I started. This concept's pretty close. And we've been a year getting all the backlash back. So here we are coming full circle. I mean, it's hard on our end because you want, your guys' your input on how you want it.
We don't want to trip over dollars to pick up pennies either. I mean, dollars can bring in revenue, dollars can bring in more businesses, it can upgrade our Main Street. Are we gonna trip over the pennies? And basically, that's kind of what we do when we've got a solidified grant. We're gonna let it go.
Oh, no, yeah, but
So all I can
we don't want to do that, but that's what we want to get what the committee's recommendation.
And not only do we not want to let it go, we want to go get more. And the more organized as
that's
a
my
city
whole
we
point, is
look,
if we
the
can't
better
perform
off we'll
on
be.
this, then-
Yeah.
Then it makes it
So,
really hard to go.
Yeah, I don't know. You guys tell me if I'm correct in saying this, but the worst thing that we could do is get deadlocked and do nothing.
Well,
Right.
yeah.
So right, as far as all that I have read has pointed to as far as like a downtown development and all of the research that I personally have read, and you guys can talk to this as well, that a public plaza has been mentioned in all of that as a key component. But really at this point, it's a question of what can we get done quickly. I think my feeling from working with our city has been like the reason that they feel, I don't want to say pressured, but they feel the anxiety to kind of move on something like Midland Square is it is something we can go and sink our teeth into like right now. The only reason that maybe you felt like the streetscape has been pushed to the back in this meeting is because the streetscape takes, time and collaboration and things like that. But in all the research that I've read, a public square has been mentioned as one of those key components. Ultimately, it's up to you. What do you guys?
All in favor?
Well, I think one of the things, when we started this last May or whenever, it seemed overwhelming to think about Main Street and Midland Square and everything all at one time. And that's how we kind of put Midland Square over here till we could get this other worked out. And now we just have to get Midland Square worked out.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is an excellent discussion. We can continue it on in our policy meeting, but what we need to do is we need to break for a little bit. We need to go into a closed session. So we'll hopefully we can do this in 15 minutes or so, and then we'll invite everybody back, and we can the decision on this is I think it's the only policy decision. The only real decision I think we have on new council business is this, so we'll have some time to continue the discussion. I just need to stop it right now so we can go into
Hey,
this
Jared, thank you.
closed session. Excellent job, Jared. Thank you so much. And Jeff, thank you.
Go into closed session, Mayor.
I'll second it.
By Wes and seconded by Brett. Favor?
Yes.
Yes. I was down to the